Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for my favorite segment, your favorite segment, and everyone's favorite segment here on the Level 1 podcast. It's time for DSP News, and I think it's time for me to change the logo a bit. There we go. It hasn't been red in a very, very long. That looks almost pinkish. Right? Hold on. I want to make it like red.
Boy, I sure am glad the DSP is taking the time to change the color of the stupid banner that nobody cares about and can't tell what the color red looks like, because it is currently already the color red. This is definitely one of those things that you get sorted out before you actually get onto the stream, so you're not wasting everybody's time. But what do I know, dude? I don't stream.
That red? That's red, right?
It is quite literally the same color of red.
Good enough. Okay. It's time for some gaming news. Let's cover it. And by the way, as you guys know, shout outs will be coming at the end of the show. So thanks for being patient. Thank you, Jared. You upped his membership there, and I'll give him a shout out in a bit. We have a couple news stories to cover today. First of all, prepare to laugh because, ladies and gentlemen, Skull and Bones, the first ever quadruple A game from Ubisoft, according to CEO Yves Guillemot, is currently being sold for $40. The game has only been out for 1 month and has dropped in price from $70 to $40.
Why am I supposed to be laughing at this? In fact, why am I supposed to give a shit about this at all, DSP? It's a game I was never interested in playing. It's a game that I never actually cared about. I'm not actively invested in the game failing simply because you don't like the president of the company and you think the game should fail. I don't care about it. You'd think the way that he's preying on this game's downfall that it smacked his wife or something. And it all stems from the fact that he just doesn't like the guy who's running the company that it's from.
Chances are we're going to see even bigger price slashes soon, because retailers who stocked this game have sold nearly no copies. It is just sitting there on the shelves, unsold. So retailers are just trying to get rid of it, and they're just continuously slashing prices. Right now at Best Buy, it's $40, but they're actually predicting that prices will go down to somewhere around 30 to 20 within the next month, because literally no one has bought, played, or talked about this game.
And it's not that I don't believe DSP, but when you're going to do a news segment like this and you say, oh, people are speculating that it's going to continue to drop further in price, I'd like to see some sort of source. Who exactly is saying this? Is this just speculation you were seeing on Twitter? Or was that in an actual article that was written and published? Because it does make a difference, believe it or not. I mean, I know what the answer is. It was just some shit that he saw on Twitter, because that's the only place that he gets any of this information from. Because looking any further into his story would require too much effort on DSP's behalf. And despite this being a staple segment in his stupid pre-stream he does every single day for far too long, he can't be bothered to actually look into anything.
It's dead. It's a dead in the water game. Are you shocked? Right? Like I said, my wife and I tried it on one of our days off on Game Pass. The game is literally a mobile game. It has all the mechanics of a mobile game. It has bad graphics, quick time animations. It just has the feeling that it has that that gameplay loop of resource gathering, right? And just repetition. There's nothing fun about the game at all. It's pathetically bad.
Well, DSP, you're our local mobile game expert, so if you say it has all the makings of a mobile game, I have to trust your opinion on this one. It's about the only field that you're an expert in. But you asked, am I surprised that this game isn't doing well, that people aren't playing it? No, but I never really had an interest in it anyway.
So, are you shocked that Skull and Bones is $40 only 1 month after release? And by the way, again, this is Yves Guillemot, the CEO, when they said, can you justify the $70 price tag of your game? And he said, oh, it's not even a AAA game, it's a quadruple A game. The guy is a jackass who literally should not have his job. There should be someone else in charge of a game company that's in touch with gamers and what they want, because he's going to keep hurting not only his own company, but the games industry as a whole if he keeps driving this thing off the cliff. He's an idiot.
Isn't DSP always going on about how he's not the king of hate anymore, and he doesn't say all of those hateful things? He doesn't go above and beyond when he goes to insult people and doesn't tell developers that they need to be fired or that people need to find them or whatever he used to say. You know what he used to say. But yet here he is, calm as a clam, telling you that the CEO of Ubisoft needs to be fired immediately and lose his job, lose his livelihood, simply because DSP doesn't agree with the business decisions that he's making that don't actually have any effect on him at all. Don't get me wrong, I don't like the guy either. I don't like the way that he runs the the company. I don't like the games that they push out, but the solution to that is to just not buy them. But me not buying those games and him continuing to work there and ruin the company has nothing to do with me. I'm not hurt by this. I don't have a personal stake in it. I do think it's very strange that DSP has such a vendetta against the guy though, because he can't mention the entire company without bringing him up. It's like the two are synonymous for him, which is a very strange thing to do, because when talking about video game companies, I don't typically think about the person who's in charge. I think about the games that they're making. But every single time that DSP talks about Ubisoft, he has to bring up the CEO and his thoughts on him, as if anybody gives a shit.
He's made bad choice after bad choice in the last 10 years. You can literally look at his track record now. I remember over a decade ago, the big botch launch of Rayman Legends? Rayman Origins or Rayman Legends? I think it was Rayman Legends, where originally the game was supposed to be cross-platform. Mr. Igimi decided that it's going to be a Wii U exclusive. Now, at that time, no one knew the Wii U was going to be a huge flop. So all the developers made the game exclusively for Wii U, and then the Wii U comes out and flops, and he delayed the release of the game and ordered them to make the game cross-platform, to which they responded, that's what we fucking wanted to do to begin with, and you told us not to. So now our game is done on Wii U, and you're telling us we can't release our finished game. We have to sit here for 4 or 5 more months to port it to all the other consoles. And they were picketing outside of their game dev studio saying, release the game, it's done. You know, the management don't know what the hell they're doing. That was a decade ago. And it's just been misstep after misstep after misstep. The mishandling of Assassin's Creed and how bad it got, right? The mishandling of all the Ubisoft franchises and how they run into the ground and they're all samey and they suck.
So a decade ago, you realized that this guy was running this company in a way that you didn't agree with, causing there to be problems with the games that they were putting out. And for the past decade, all the way up until today, you have continued to buy every single game that they put out so that you could play them on your stupid YouTube channel. It doesn't sound like you're exactly part of the solution there, DSP. You've continued to support all of their bad practices. You would have thought that if he had a problem with the way that they were running the company a decade ago, that at some point he would have taken a stance. I guess that stance is right now, but I just feel like a decade is really, really late into the problem. Because he acknowledged it wasn't only Rayman Legends, it was all of the Assassin's Creed over time getting more samey and being more repetitive. And he played every single one. That's so many bad games to come out consistently to continue to support a company that you have problems with. I understand if you could let one bad game pass, but letting 2, 3, 4 games go? Come on, man. At that point, you're just being part of the problem to be part of the problem.
This guy should not be in charge of that company. He's completely out of touch. So Skull and Bones, it sucks ass. It's already slashed prices. I don't recommend that you pay any money for it. Just saying, it looks terrible, but there you go. Our second news story of the day. Hands-on previews of the new upcoming game Judith from Ken Levin are finally hitting the internet. And if you don't know who Ken Levin is, I don't blame you. It's been a long time since we heard from him. He is the person in charge of BioShock. And I don't mean BioShock 2. I mean BioShock 1 and Infinite, the 2 games that connected and then had cool DLC to have this alternate universe multiverse plotline. That's right. The multiverse was a thing in video games before it was in the Marvel Universe, or I should say the MCU, correct?
Yes, multiverse plotlines have existed in storytelling for what seems like ages, DSP. I'm not quite sure why you felt the need to pig-splain that to us. Unless, of course, the answer is because you know that the majority of your audience is children who has never experienced that older style media. But you always tell us that your audience is full of people your age, so I guess that couldn't be it, could it?
So, very interesting. Here's what we know about Judith. It's BioShock in space. It has a non-linear story structure, meaning you can play the game in different orders, and it's all fine. It's up to your own decisions. The main character has memory loss, and you're trying to regain your memory over the course of the game. 3 major side characters are in the game. One is called Tom and voiced by Troy Baker. And before we all make a rude comment about Troy Baker, I like him as a voice actor, and he actually hasn't been in much recently, so I would welcome to see him as a voice actor in this game as one of the main characters, so I'm happy for that. He's a great voice actor.
What the hell was that? He announces that Troy Baker's gonna be the VA, and then he goes, before everybody starts grunting and groaning about Troy Baker, actually, I like him, so it's a good thing. The fact that you like him shouldn't change everybody else's opinion on Troy Baker being in the game. The people that don't like him are gonna grunt and groan all the same. Who the hell are you to think that your opinion matters to these people and whether or not they want him in the game? When I heard that live, I thought it was very strange. I just don't know where you get off thinking that your opinion matters that much. I'm also unsure as to why he thought that he needed to run out there and play defense for Troy Baker of all people.
Hope and Nefertiti, don't know who they are, there's just 3 main characters. Each of the narratives occurs simultaneously. So it almost sounds like there's 3 stories, but they're all taking place simultaneously, and maybe the characters actually have interactions during the course of the game. Your decisions with these characters will greatly affect the narrative of the game. Every player experience will be different based on the choices that you make and the order that you play the game. So maybe if you play with Nefertiti first, Tom second, and Hope last, it might change the plot. As opposed to if you play with Tom first, Nefertiti second, and Hope last. You see what I'm saying? That's interesting. Maybe some replayability. Apparently, there's going to be some roguelike elements. For example, I guess the protagonist's name excuse me, the antagonist's name is Judith, and she has the ability to regenerate herself after she dies. So you can technically kill the antagonist, but then she might come back later in another form or rejuvenate after a time and come back after you, which is kind of interesting. The game sounds interesting to me. It sounds like they've taken an established premise, they've added some new elements to it. It sounds like the element of choice is going to be cool. I like the fact that it's not linear, so you could do it in different orders and have different outcomes.
And you can see the consumerism just coming out of DSP at this point. He's always wondering why he's always disappointed in all of these new games and they don't live up to his expectations. Why he only ever has negative things to say about things that come out. It's exactly this. It's because he knows nothing about the game and he's crafted this entire theory already about how the game is going to go and that he's going to enjoy it. He's already set the bar of expectations for this game far higher than it has any right to be, given that we don't really know anything about the game anyway. I think it's a safe practice to not be interested in games until you see actual gameplay in the modern day, because so many games have good premises, have good stories, have good mechanics, and then they just fumble the bag at the final hour. And that advice would go doubly for DSP given how much of a graphics whore he is. Because despite not playing on a PC where he would actually be able to, you know, take control over all of the graphical options that he wants to take control over, he's absolutely obsessed with the graphics of the video game. It's like the most important thing to him. It seems like the first thing that he does when he starts a new game is he tells you what the graphics look like, and then he tells you about how smooth the frame rate is. I mean, he just did that with Alone in the Dark yesterday. Yesterday as in reference to when this was recorded, obviously. So I think it would be a wise idea to not get excited about these games that pretty much don't exist yet except in your mind. Because more often than not, they get released and they run like shit, because that's modern gaming for you. And he of all people should know that.
And dude, BioShock 1, in my opinion, one of the best modern games that I've ever played. I mean, that plot was so effing good the first time that you played it. I mean, the plot twists and stuff. So, man, I can't wait. This game sounds great to me. But again, you got to wonder, man, with all the hype now that's going to be behind this, because BioShock has been on the shelf for, what, a decade? You know, will it live up to its hype? I don't know.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. Who's hyping this game up? You're the only person I've heard talking about it. You're the one that's heaping all of this praise on not only its predecessor, but on the mechanics that you barely know anything about. I don't know why you would want to set these games up for failure like that, but he does it all the time with all of these new releases that come to the channel. He hypes them up, he starts to play them, they flounder because he's not entertaining, and then he either blames his audience or he blames the game outright. It truly is a vicious cycle, and the reason why I hope the Elden Ring DLC absolutely flops on his channel, because he's doing it with that too. A DLC for a Souls game.
But it looks good. And so I hope that we'll have more information soon. And I hope that it comes out, you know, relatively soon. I don't think we have any information on when it's coming out yet. I just seen this information. Like, people are talking about the previews that they got or had, but no one's really, I didn't see anything about like a solid release date. I don't think the game has a solid release date yet. Ben Rogers says, keep in mind, BioShock 4 is still in the works. Yeah, but the problem with BioShock 4 is it's not made by the same people. You know, it's the same company. They own the rights, but it's not the same people behind it. So there's a good chance it won't have the spirit or the feeling of like BioShock 1 and Infinite. It might feel like BioShock 2. And BioShock 2 was dog shit. It really was. It was an unpolished, unfinished mess of a game that didn't feel nearly as good as BioShock 1.
You know, I got a hot take here. I actually enjoyed BioShock 2 when I played it. I played BioShock 1 and 2 back to back. I didn't think it was as good as BioShock 1, but I still had fun with it. Infinite, on the other hand, don't even get me started on Infinite. I couldn't play that game, it sucks so bad. I can't sit here and listen to this BioShock 2 slander for the rest of my life, okay?
You know, that it was sad that when you played it, like, oh, I just want to play BioShock 1 again, you know? Anyway. Judith, keep your eyes peeled for it. I'll let you know if there's any more information on it, okay? And then our final news story of today is that Phil Spencer was interviewed. And here's what he said. You ready?
And this is really the meat and potatoes of the segment, the entire reason we're here. Because while I find DSP's hatred for Ubisoft and the guy who runs the company very strange, I found this latter section so much funnier.
The layoffs that have happened at Activision are necessary because Xbox is a business and it somehow has to be profitable. He thinks that the console market is currently not growing and that Xbox's brand pivot to games on more than one platform is a path to growth.
Well, that makes sense to me. Maybe not the layoff part, given how much those CEO types actually make, but the pivot away from console exclusives into doing cross-platform is actually really cool. I thought it was really cool when Sony was doing that and pushing things onto PC as well. And it gives a lot of people the chance to play a game they probably never would have played because they were never going to own that console. Because why would I need to own multiple consoles or a console at all if I'm a PC gamer?
Allow me now to read word for word what he said, and then I'm actually going to give you my opinions on this. So here's his first big statement. I will say every decision we make today and tomorrow is for the better of Xbox, said Spencer. I know sometimes things get weaponized and there's some evil in the background that's making us do things. Phil hates exclusives. That's why we're like we're on PlayStation and Switch now. Every decision we make is to make Xbox stronger in the long run. It doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with every decision that we make, but it is fundamental for how we make decisions.
Okay, so far we just have Corpo speak. Not a big fan myself, but we haven't said anything directly harmful.
This notion that Xbox can only be this one device that plugs into a television isn't something we see in the Gen Z research, because nothing else is like that for them. Some of them will have an iPhone, some have an Android, but all of the games on everything are the same. I can still get to TikTok on both of those devices, at least for now. All of their stuff is available wherever you want. So for Xbox, our brand pivot as we attract and maintain relevance with a younger audience is Xbox is a place where I can find the great games that I want. I'm not going to say anything yet. I'm going to keep reading word for word what he said in this interview. Okay?
I'll jump in real quick then, DSP. I'll take it. That's fine. Because I already said I think that pivoting to non-exclusives is super cool. Causing the least amount of inconvenience to the people who want to buy your product and engage with your product is probably a good idea. Especially given the fact that Xbox has lost, the last 2 console wars, if that's what you want to call them. You know what I mean. If you're going to be outsold by your competitor, you might as well be making as much money as possible off of your games and studios that are under your umbrella. And pivoting to these non-exclusives is the perfect way to do that.
It's a little bit of both, said Spencer. But I'll say the thing that has me most concerned for the industry is the lack of growth. When you have an industry that is projected to be smaller next year in terms of players and dollars, and you get a lot of publicly traded companies that are in the industry that have to show their investors growth, because why else does someone own a share of someone's stock if it's not going to grow? The side of the business that then gets scrutinized is the cost side. Because if you're not going to grow the revenue side, then the cost side becomes challenged. We're a business. I said this over and over. I don't get any luxury of not having to run a profitable, growing business inside of Microsoft. And we are that today. But just across the industry, you mentioned it. And in sitting here at GDC, because this was at Game Developers Conference where he was being interviewed, I reflect on friends of mine in the industry that have been displaced and have lost their jobs. And how I don't want this industry to be a place where people just can't with confidence build a career. So that's why I keep pivoting back to how does this industry get back to growth? But to your question, for us at Xbox or any of the teams that are out there, is it really an outcome of an industry that's not growing? It can grow and it will grow again, but you see this time right now, and the implications have human impact, and we should all reflect on that and think about it.
So overall, just a lot of corpo fluff that I really can't appreciate. But there were a couple of solid points in there, I suppose. The industry's projected to not be growing next year, so we have to take a look at our costs. We're pivoting over from non-exclusives. We've done research with a younger generation, and this is what we think is going to work. This all sounds like normal business stuff. So what does DSP have to say about this?
Well, first of all, Mr. Spencer, it's not our job to reflect on it and think about it. It's yours. You're in charge. You're the one who's responsible. So if you're not growing, why? And if you can't figure that out, step down.
Holy shit, if that isn't peak irony coming from the guy, I don't know what is. This is a guy who is constantly talking about he needs your feedback. He doesn't know why his channel is doing as poorly as it is. It's the games, it's the audience, it's nothing that he's doing. Here's an idea, DSP. If you're not growing and you don't know why, then you need to step down and hand the reins over, I guess. Give them to Kat. She might actually be a better streamer than you. And I would think, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me, that when he says that you need to reflect and think about these things, it's because you're passing judgment on him and the decisions that he's making for the company. And if you're going to do that, then maybe you might want to take into consideration the things that he is taking into consideration and think about them. But no, this is DSP's world and we're just living in it. So if he doesn't agree with your business decisions, he's not going to think about it. He's just going to tell you that you should step down, I guess. Which every rational human being would do, of course.
It's that simple. You're in charge of the ship. If the ship is going off the edge of a waterfall and everyone's about to drown, and you're the one controlling the ship, do you think maybe someone else should take the reins?
Again, the same thing could be said to DSP about his channel. He's been driving his channel off the edge of a cliff for over a decade now. His numbers are consistently down all of the time. His members are constantly down all of the time. If there was anybody who needed to hand the wheel off, if there was anybody that needed some sort of guidance on how to operate their business, it was the guy. But no, we're gonna sit here and pretend like little old us who operates this tiny baby stream knows more than Phil Spencer, the guy who's been running Xbox for the past decade. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, Bill Gates agrees.
I'm just saying, like, you're in charge. He says, we should all sit back and reflect. That's your fucking job. That's who you are. Literally, that's your position, right? So when you hear shit like this, it's PR speak. What is he saying? We're a company and companies need to make money. And if we're not making money, we still have to make money. So we have to cut people. Wrong.
Huh? What? Well, DSP, I can see how you had to file for bankruptcy because you think that a business doesn't have to make money and continue to make money in order to be successful. You don't understand that if your profits are no longer profits and instead deficits, that you might actually have to cut people from your staff. Not that I'm saying that that's exactly what Xbox was going through. I'm sure that they were cutting people prematurely to appease stockholders. Trust me, I understand. But I don't think that DSP is understanding the nuance that he should be addressing because he's not outright addressing it in any sort of detail. He just outright said that it's wrong that a business has to be profitable and continue to be profitable.
Wrong. That's completely incorrect, okay? People invest in companies for long-term results. People don't immediately invest in stock and think, tomorrow I'm making a profit. That's not even the point. Someone who's a smart investor goes for long-term investment. Sometimes you'll invest in a stock that's a long shot, but you think that projected down the line, it'll get some money and you'll make a big gain on it, right? People don't buy a stock thinking tomorrow I'll make money. He's literally saying, well, if we don't just make money immediately right now, right, no one will ever invest in us ever again. That's completely fucking false. What you need to do is prove to people that your company has a plan that long-term you are going to be profitable. He is the CEO of Xbox and he doesn't even understand fucking business or investments.
I'm not taking business advice from a guy who filed for bankruptcy. I know I keep harping on this, but if that isn't a telltale sign of a failed business, I don't know what is. And where's all of your sound investments, DSP? You're not exactly an expert stock trader either. You invested in what, 2 leased BMWs and a bunch of statues that immediately lost value and you broke a bunch of? Yeah, tell me all about how I'm supposed to be investing my money or how anybody else is supposed to be investing their money. And he has a point. People are interested in investing in a company that has a plan. And what Phil Spencer just said is that they have a plan, that they're looking at the situation, they're doing research, and that they've come to the conclusion that this is the direction that they want to move, you know, to continue to be profitable and increase their stocks. But that's apparently not good enough for DSP because it wasn't the way he wanted it done. DSP should just be running Xbox. Apparently it would be far more successful. He has it all figured out. Bill Gates, get him on the phone. He'll do it to you. Because despite what people might believe, DSP is in fact him, and he will continue to be him.
Like, it's insane what he's saying. Literally, it's nonsensical. This is complete short-term thought that doesn't work for any kind of a long-term industry. He's making judgments in his company and, you know, everything Xbox based off of we must make immediate profits now no matter what. And that's not how a good business operates at all. There should be a long-term plan in effect that you can prove to investors it's worth it to come invest with us. Here's why. I have this in place, this in place, this in place, this in place. Not, oh, well, right now the whole industry is seeing some shrink, so therefore we have to cut all of our jobs so we can still pay out money to the shareholders. That's stupidity.
But that's not what he said, DSP. You're twisting his words like you claim that everybody else is doing to you all of the time. Because if they keep their company scaled back and they don't hire on a bunch of more people or buy a bunch of more studios up and continue to bloat their company, this is a long-term plan.
You know what? If you have a ton of shareholders where all they care about is immediate profits every moment, you have a bad group of shareholders. They're not going to have your back when you need them.
Does anybody want to tell DSP that that's how the majority of shareholders are and the only thing that they care about is money and that's the entire point that they own stocks in the business anyway? I mean, it seemed pretty obvious to me given how every single company has pretty much been run forever now, but apparently Mr. Business Degree doesn't know anything about that. I don't really know what good that business degree or finance degree or whatever he has is doing for him, but he seems to be confused about how shareholders actually work in the real world.
So that's fucked up. Well, it means you misrepresented your company as a get-rich-quick company instead of a company that will actually benefit people in a portfolio of long-term investments. You fucked up. Sorry that I have a finance background and I know about this shit. He doesn't even know how to run his company. He's making public statements that are cringe in relation to anything realistic when it comes to business. And this guy's in charge of the whole fucking company.
He really flashed his finance background and said that he understands everything after filing for bankruptcy and having no shareholders in DSP space gaming other than himself. Sounds robust and meaningful to me, Phil. Just let me know how that continues to go for you as the years go on. Because if your little operation was a real business that actually had shareholders, they all would have dumped the stocks long ago.
Unreal. Absolutely unfucking real. I hate to say this, guys, but this just goes to prove, again, I said it again and again, the people who are in charge of these companies don't even understand the industries they're talking about.
Again, absolute irony that he's sitting here talking about how people don't understand the very industry that they operate in while he doesn't understand anything about online content creation or streaming. I mean, the dude doesn't even understand his own software that he uses every single day for the past, what, 8 years in a row now? But heaven forbid the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation just takes a misstep in a long-form plan, which we don't even know is a misstep yet because he just said it and it was just put into practice. So we're still waiting on the results, but DSP disagrees agrees with it, so they must not understand the industry, you guys. Hold on while I take a 20-minute bathroom break without pausing my recording.
Right? How often do you think there's going to be a giant, explosive, profitable boom in console gaming? Maybe once every console generation, there's a spike. It's not going to be constant money pouring out of it, but there will be times when there will be giant profitable streaks. You know, do you think that Xbox's strategy recently is working? Buy up every fucking third-party studio and then literally just be hands-off and let them do whatever they want and pump out unfinished messes like Redfall? Do you think that's going to make money?
Maybe, maybe not, but it seems to be the industry standard at this point. I mean, how many conglomerate corporations actually went and did exactly that and is now reeling from it? So let's not sit here and act like this is really an exclusive to Xbox style situation. It's an entire industry problem.
But that's what Phil Spencer's doing, and now that that's failing, he's saying, well, we still have to make money somehow, so cut everyone's jobs. No, Phil, here's what you do. You get fired, and someone else steps into your role who knows how to run a company, and then you don't have to do that anymore.
God, if only that were possible when DSP streams were failing. But I have to show some love to the fact that DSP delivered that line, "No, Phil, you get fired," without any sort of hesitation, knowing that that is going to be clipped and used against him.
Someone who actually is take charge instead of sit back and act like a frat boy and dress like you're in college.
I thought that the insult to how he dresses himself was a little unnecessary. So I went out of my way to find a bunch of different pictures of Phil Spencer. Here's a screenshot of what those pictures look like. And Phil Spencer dresses like a normal guy. Most of the time he's wearing just a gaming style t-shirt because he's in the games industry in a jacket, or he's got a formal jacket on with a game logo t-shirt underneath because again, he's in the games industry. What about this is dressing like a frat boy? I'd say for the most part, he just looks like a business type that is in the games industry. Is this just jealousy on DSP's end because he thinks that adults are supposed to be wearing button-up shirts only because that's what he does while he's LARPing? I don't know, man. Like I said, I thought this insult was a little uncalled for. But I guess no insult is really off the table when you're the king of hate, huh?
Right? Someone who can actually fucking put their foot down and say, here's what we need to do with our games. They have to be good. They have to qualify these criteria that gamers are looking for. We have to be sure that we're hitting these markers so that people will want to play our games on our consoles. Not, oh, well, the games industry's in a downturn, so I guess we just cut jobs until it comes back. You're a fucking idiot.
But that's assuming that DSP knows more about the games industry than the guy who's running one of the biggest companies in the space, and that he also has a deeper understanding of the future projections and where the industry is going. But it makes sense to me that if the industry is projecting a downward trend, it doesn't exactly matter whether or not your games are up to snuff. It'll definitely help, but it won't matter because people aren't apparently going to be buying nearly as many games. So you have to do something. I used to work at a machine shop, and if they were projecting that there weren't going to be any sort of construction projects or any sort of building going on and they weren't going to need the parts that we were manufacturing, it didn't matter how good the parts that we were making were. It didn't matter that they were all up to standard and used the highest quality material we could get our hands on, because nobody was gonna buy the part anyway. And when you're in that situation, one of the only things that you can do is look at where you can cut your costs to continue to be as profitable as possible. This is not in any way a defense for how these big businesses operate themselves, but I can definitely see the rationale and see how they would have came to the conclusion given exactly what they're saying.
Phil Spencer is a fucking idiot. What he's saying is ridiculous. I read this article this morning. I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? It's just insane. You know, it's absolutely insane.
DSP, I agree. It's absolutely insane. They should have just consulted with you. You would have set them on the right path, obviously. Maybe then Xbox could have filed for a bankruptcy. That would have been really robust.
But I hate to say it, but, you know, the whole corporate America in particular is an industry where people fail up. And what I mean by that is these people are horrible at their jobs, right? They do horrible things and they're still rich and they still succeed somehow, because it's like once you're at that level, you literally never get any accountability for what you do. You just continuously get paid. It's like, what the fuck?
Man, the irony meter in this video is off the charts because that's exactly the scenario that DSP finds himself in every single day. Ever since 2010, when he became a full-time content creator, he did nothing but fail up and get paid to continue to fail. That's on a downward trend now, obviously, that his numbers are crashing, but he continues to still be paid for absolutely nothing every single day. His lifestyle hasn't changed, not even after the bankruptcy. And this is a guy who's never been good at video games or had an interesting thing to say that made an entire career out of playing video games and saying things. Make that make sense.
There you go. Michael Caine just said something very interesting in the chat. You ready? He says, there's an old interview clip with Steve Jobs. He explains why companies fail, because salespeople get promoted to decision-making positions and salespeople don't care about quality. You got Yves Guillemot over here saying excuse me, I said Sea of Thieves, that's incorrect. Skull and Bones is a quad A game worth $70. The game is a pile of dog shit, but he says that because he's a salesman. You got Phil Spencer over here telling everyone, oh, all these studios we're acquiring are great and everything's good. Then he completely hands off with anything, and all the games they pump out are dog shit. So then he says, oh, well, our industry's in a downturn, so we have to lay off people to be profitable.
From my understanding, Phil Spencer was never actually a salesman. Sales was never exactly something that was in his job description. Obviously now, as the head of a major company, he has to sell his company like any head of a company would. It doesn't make any sense to not try and sell your company. It really just comes with the territory. But I wanted to make it clear that Phil Spencer has not been a salesman, so if DSP meant that literally, then that's not the case. But if he meant it figuratively, as in he's trying to sell his company now, like, yeah, he's the head of the company. Why would you want to try and push sales away from your company?
You're in charge. You are the people in charge of the companies. And the people who are getting punished are the people below you for your bad decisions. Do you see a problem with that, perhaps? Right? Really? Listen, if I make a bad decision, and if I do shitty things here on stream or whatever, I'm the one who gets punished for it, correct? I'll be the one. Imagine if I said something awful on a stream that was terrible, and then other people suffered for it, not me. I'm fine. I stay where I am, and I just keep, I get still be a YouTuber, but everyone else gets hurt. Imagine that.
Well, DSP, the only reason that never happened is because you failed far before you were able to hire the people that you wanted to hire in order to do what? Edit your videos and post them for you? Because that was a plan that you had at some point. Remember, you were going to have employees and you were going to buy an office space and you were going to make this a whole production. Imagine if you would have done all of that and then said all of the things that you said and got removed from all of the platforms the same way that you did. Those people would have been hurt, DSP. You're really no different. The only difference is that you failed before you ever got there. And is that really something to be bragging about? Yes, DSP, you never had to fire any employees because you were too stupid and failed far before you ever got there. Congratulations, you got them.
That's the positions these people are in. They can literally just sit here and make mistake after mistake after mistake, and their companies just continue on, and they continue on, but all the people under them suffer for it. That's pretty insane, don't you think? That drives me bonkers. That you have people in charge. I mean, I've already had issue with Phil Spencer over the years of some of the dumb things he said. I keep telling you guys, you can't trust the guy because he's essentially just like we just said, he's a salesman. He's not a CEO. He's not a leader. He's a salesman.
You really shouldn't be trusting any of these bigwig CEO types, DSP. That's just a bad idea in general. But the way he's talking about it, you would think that he knows him personally and was personally backstabbed by Phil Spencer or something. It's so weird that he attacks these people with such vitriol, all over some video games.
He's put there to the forefront to push stuff, and then when it all fails, he just smoke and mirrors you to a different direction or something else and makes up an excuse or whatever. It's nonsense. The guy's a joke. I mean, why is Xbox right now, even though they have comparable hardware to the PlayStation 5, why are they so far behind this console gen?
Aren't you telling us all the time, DSP, that typically when these new AAA game releases happen, that they run better on the PlayStation for whatever reason? In fact, you were making that a big deal when talking about Dragon's Dogma 2, that for once the Xbox actually ran a game better than the PlayStation did. So maybe that's one of the reasons that they would be behind on the sales front. And hardware isn't the only reason that people buy these consoles. There's so much more to it than that. But we're not going to take any of that into consideration, are we? Because if we did, we might not be able to heap all of the blame onto Phil Spencer for whatever reason.
Can you think of a reason to have an Xbox besides Game Pass? I mean, Game Pass is a great value. I like the Xbox controller better than the PS5 controller. But if all games are on both consoles, and PS5 has a few awesome exclusives, why would you not want the PS5?
Well, you're always the one that's telling us how awesome Game Pass is. In fact, you just did it. So maybe the value of the Game Pass subscription alone is something that would want to keep you on the Xbox over the PlayStation. Maybe you're so comfortable with the controller that you've been playing with for so long that you don't want to adapt to a new controller layout like the PlayStation has. These are another couple of factors that would absolutely play into why you would buy one console over another one. You know, the exact opposite of the point that he's trying to make.
Correct? So unless he can fucking figure out a reason to own his console, there will always be a downturn of console sales this generation. I mean, it's his fault. I honestly don't know why people like him so much. Why? Because he has a smile? Because he, again, because he looks like a friendly guy? Again, because he looks like a friendly college guy who wants to hang out with you and play video games? He was in charge of Microsoft during the Xbox One era, and now the Xbox Series S and X era when it's on a downturn. You understand?
And we're back at it again, calling out this guy's looks for some reason, continuing to say that he dresses like he's in college. DSP should be the last person to be coming for how people look physically. Wasn't that one of the things that he complained LTG did to him? Oh, LTG had no valid criticisms. All he could do is talk about the way that I looked. And now DSP is doing pretty much exactly that for some reason.
He's not doing the right choices. He's not doing the right choices. He's doing all the wrong choices for Xbox. And it's sad because the hardware is good. There's nothing wrong with that console. I like playing games on it. It's his fault. He doesn't know how to run the company. And the thing he just said there blows my mind. He says, so we want people to think of Xbox as the place to play all the good games, but it doesn't have to be a console. Then what the fuck is it, you idiot? What is it? What are you talking about? Are you a third-party developer, or are you a first-party company that has a console that people want to play games on? You can't have it both ways. If you have it both ways, no one needs your console. You can't sell Xbox as a brand because the brand is the console. It's not a line of games.
When I heard this, I immediately thought that Phil Spencer was trying to get across that Xbox is more of a brand and less so about the very console that they're trying to sell. So when you think great gaming, when you think about a place to game, you would think about Xbox, but not specifically the console, but more of the brand. Because Xbox is still going to be responsible for a lot of the fun gaming experiences you have, and you're going to enjoy the company's product. Again, sounds a lot like corpo talk, I know. But DSP is so stuck on this weird console war thing that he can't even fathom the fact that this company might be moving in a direction that isn't directly related to competing in a console war. It just goes to show you how narrow-minded he is on doing something that doesn't matter instead of expanding his horizons and going into other avenues. Just because right now you don't associate any game specifically with Microsoft like that doesn't mean that in the future you couldn't, and it seems like that's the direction they're moving by buying all of these studios and trying to put out their own games all of the time.
Right? What he says makes no fucking sense at all. He's an idiot. Anyway, it blows my mind. It gives me a headache that these people are in charge of these companies. What a story. What an interview at GDC. I mean, after that, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. For all the people who are like gung ho behind, Microsoft, I'll be honest. I have lost confidence in this company. Listen, I love my Xbox. I love Game Pass. I love the controller. Hell, I still get surround sound out of my Xbox, which I don't get out of my PS5. But, dude, you can't be a worse manager. You can't be a worse leader.
The fact that DSP still had any faith in a humongous company like Microsoft and Xbox in general is kind of shocking to me. But if DSP's anything, he's a consumer, so I guess I shouldn't be. But none of this is really going to be of any difference to DSP. This won't affect how he goes about his day-to-day life. He won't change his spending habits. He's just going to continue to support these companies despite disagreeing with everything they're doing, apparently. Just bellyaching the bellyache.
I really can't imagine. I mean, the guy is such an inept idiot. He's like an oaf, bumbling around, slipping on banana peels and fucking making excuses for everything. He's ridiculous.
And I'm gonna run that back one more time. And let me know if this doesn't sound exactly like DSP being described.
I really can't imagine. I mean, the guy is such an inept idiot. He's like an oaf, bumbling around, slipping on banana peels and fucking making excuses for everything. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It sounds exactly like DSP.
He's like, at this point, it's like a comedian. He's not a fucking corporate leader. That is not how you run your company. Like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, it is what it is. I guess we'll continue to follow. I don't know how he thinks he's going to pull Xbox out of the fire when he's at GDC saying shit like that in interviews. All this does is kills consumer confidence. Imagine you're a shareholder of Xbox, right? And the CEO of the company you own stock in just said he believes there's an industry downturn, and the only way that he can give you money for your share is to fire employees. Would you want to continue to be invested in that company? Or would you say, wow, this sounds like a ship that's sinking. This sounds like a room that's on fire, and I need to get the fuck out, right?
Well, if I'm a greedy stockholder and all I care about is money, and this company man just told me that he's willing to fire a bunch of employees to continue to give me as much money as possible, all while other companies in the industry are reeling from having to cut back so drastically so rapidly, yes, because it sounds like he might have a plan that continues to make me as much money as possible because, again, I'm a greedy shareholder who doesn't care about the actual industry.
And he publicly said this in an interview. Why is he so stupid? Even if everything he says is true, it's still stupid to say it. Oh my God, right? Sometimes you have to be smart enough to realize that things need to be left unsaid.
And do I really have to explain how that's ironic coming from him? Because that's the exact same thing that everybody online has been telling him forever now. That despite all of the things that happen on and off your streams, DSP, you giving them the time of day and bringing them up the way that you do is not good for your business and is the reason that you're a lolcow. But you guys knew all of that already.
Phil Spencer's not smart enough. He's dumb. Yikes. Well, guys, that's what I got for gaming news today. Sorry that one was such a bummer. It really is a bummer for me. Because, again, I like my Xbox console. I like the Series X. I think it's a superb console. There's nothing wrong with it. I like the idea of Game Pass. It pains me. It pains me to hear people who are in charge of this industry say dumb shit.
It shouldn't be paining you that much, DSP. This is a hobby for everybody. You're taking this shit way too seriously. If you don't like the direction that company is moving, you can support a different company. You can buy other companies' video games, their consoles, and play on other platforms. If it really is that serious to you, but I don't know why it is, man. You just need to go outside once in a while.
It's like, seriously, it's like, this guy is like, It sounds like he just got pumped in and out of a college system that they just taught him like textbook shit. And so that's all he knows. He has no insight. He has no experience, no wisdom, no wisdom. And he's been running Xbox for what, a decade now? He has zero wisdom or any kind of knowledge in the industry. He's just still spouting out his textbook answers for everything that he learned in college. You know, that's not the fucking person to have as a leader. But he's got a nice smile and he's a good salesman, right? So he's the leader. Sounds like a plan, right? Yikes.
Yes, yikes indeed, DSP. All of that was incredibly cringe and unnecessary, but I thank you for your time, I suppose. And speaking of thank you for your time, I want to thank all of you by reading some of your comments from the last video. So shout out all the 60 skulls. Outback says, will not accept Karlach slander, and I agree, absolutely not. While I don't personally go for the Dami Mommy, I have nothing but respect for her, and Karlach slander is banned on site. Mods have been notified. Some Frenchie says, honestly, his Baldur's Gate 3 run is the perfect metaphor for his life. He put all of his eggs in one basket and is now blaming everything else for his own short-sightedness. Couldn't agree more, because he really came to the playthrough with the same logic and mentality that he has in his real life. You're meaning to tell me that my actions are going to have consequences later on? That's definitely bug choice mechanics. And G. Woody says, man, the things his ego allows him to think are the reasons people think he is a dishonest POS are astounding. I say this all the time. DSP basically lives in his own reality at this point. The Pignosis has completely warped his mind. And I'm a firm believer that at this point, he's never coming back from it. But speaking of coming back, I want to give a big shout out to everybody who watched the video, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other detractor content, dive deeper into that. Snortex.